we can start.
Yeah, sure. Hey, hi everyone, and I would like to thanks the Sitecore user group Pune for giving me the opportunity to present the knowledge on the Sitecore headless services. And thanks all to participant who joined today and giving it the precious time to listen to me. So in today's session, I will be focusing on the Sitecore headless services. So I will be explaining about a what is Sitecore headless services and what is headless CMS. And I will talk about the what are the supported products which support the Sitecore headless services, and also why we need to move to the Sitecore headless services. And I will be touching upon the different architectural component of the Sitecore headless services which we need to be aware before going towards the Sitecore headless. And you can feel free to stop me if you have any queries in between. Yes. So this is about me. So I am having a around 19 plus years of experience, and currently I am working with the Avnat, and I am a six-time Sitecore MVP. And you can reach out to me via any of the channel which is showing, or you can ping me on Slack or LinkedIn to connect with me. And moving to the first section, that is the introduction. So as I told that I will be touching upon the Sitecore headless services and its component, and I will be sharing a real project experiences which I have faced while moving to Sitecore headless services, as well as when you are going to propose a Sitecore headless services to any clients. So, what are the consideration which we have to take care before proposing it? So, first we will touch upon what is Sitecore headless services. So, you all will be aware about what is headless. So, I will be providing a brief intro about the between the headless CMS and the traditional CMS. So all you have worked upon the ASP.NET MVC, the traditional Sitecore CMS, where headless, where the content and your front end is tightly coupled, because you will be having a CD server where you will be setting up the Sitecore hosting, and you will be deploying the your application also. So if you need to change the your front end or anything, you need to be uh, aware about that. What are the Sitecore .NET assemblies are there, and which version you can utilize that, right, of the Sitecore, as well as you need to be bound with the ASP.NET MVC framework itself to build up. But in terms of a headless CMS, so if we will talk about mostly on the headless CMS, most of the headless CMS are the API based. Some are providing the REST API, some are providing the GraphQL API, right? So in the same manner, in this backend and the APIs are tightly coupled, because those are providing the content to you, and the front end which will be accessed by the end user, that you can build up in any of the technologies which is suitable for you, or your organization is working on those, and you can easily upgrade those if you are not depending upon the SDKs provided by a specific CMS which you have used. So that is a headless CMS where the content is served by the backend, and front end you can build up of your choice. And with the help of that, you can share the content with any of the channel. Like if you need to develop the mobile application, kiosk, or the offline, so you can share all the data from the CMS itself via API. So in terms of a headless CMS, you all will be aware about this diagram, which is clearly explaining about a Sitecore headless services. So what is Sitecore headless services? Before 10, it was a Sitecore JSS. Now it's called a Sitecore headless services module, which is providing a headless API for a ASP.NET rendering SDK also, and as well as the JavaScript SDK also, which is utilized by the client-side scripting framework. And also, if you are using the .NET Core, so you can utilize the .NET Core SDK to build up. So in this, we will be having a rendering engine. We will be having a media handler, graphical endpoint, layout service, dictionary, as well as the import services. So rendering engine is that earlier when we were working with the traditional ASP.NET MVC, so we will be deploying Sitecore into the CD boxes. So there we will be having the assemblies, and which will be taking care of rendering the your front end application. But here the rendering engine purpose is that whatever the content you have selected for your page template and the component you have added with placeholder, how that content will be given in the form of a layout service as well as in the form of a you can say that a GraphQL endpoint to the end user, so they can consume that in building a specific application. And earlier we used to use the Sitecore with the XM or the XP topologies. Now you can utilize the Sitecore headless services with XM, XP, and the XM Cloud also, and also XM Cloud Plus also. So I will be touching upon those things. So this is the headless services, and use a Sitecore services with your existing ASP.NET MVC. You required the, you can say that the subscription of that module, as well as if you are not using the Sitecore headless, Sitecore XXX, so you need to buy a subscription for that also, because it's better to go with the Sitecore headless XXX so that you can easily implement a multi-site implementation in your website. So, and also you can make your website a XM Cloud compatible if you are using the Sitecore XXA with the headless services. So now I will be moving to the available products. So Sitecore is totally moved to the compatible product suite. So it is offering you a different product. With the help of that, you can build up a front-end application in a headless manner, in a Jamstack way. So in this case, if you are using the Sitecore Experience Platform, Sitecore Experience Manager, so you can also serve the content via a REST API or a GraphQL endpoint using the content delivery server. So you do not need to move to the XM Cloud. You can utilize this also. You can downgrade your CD boxes and save the infrastructure cost, and you can build up using Experience Manager as well as Experience Platform. In those cases, you can self-host, or you can use the Sitecore managed services to host your application, or you can use the PaaS also, Azure PaaS also, to spin up your environment. So these options are there in terms of a self-hosted and the cloud. So if you are moving towards a complete SaaS offering, so you are having the XM Cloud Plus, and the Content Hub one. So in these, your CM instance is taken care by the Sitecore itself. They will be giving you the tenant which you can utilize to build up your website. So you will be getting a CM, and all the Solar which is utilized by the CM role itself will be taken care by the Sitecore. But if you are building a front-end application, you need to select a hosting environment or a hosting product as per your requirement. Like some clients are open to Vercel because XM Cloud and Vercel having a connectors, and it is a easy configurations, and all the pipeline and everything are set up with consideration of the Vercel. So it's a more compatible with that. But if you wanted to go with a your choice of hosting environment like Azure or a Netlify or those, then you need to set up your own pipeline to deploy your front-end application. In terms of a XM Cloud Plus, so it's a complete bundle of a XM Cloud CM role plus Sitecore Search, Sitecore CDP, Sitecore Personalize, as well as Sitecore Connect. So all are bundled as a one product to you. So you do not need to buy a separate licenses. So if you are building a future proofing application where you are mostly relying on the composable product suite, so it's better to go with the XM Cloud Plus, so that you can utilize the full potential of all the Sitecore products for which you are having a connector build up out of the box. And in Content Hub 1, that is also a very lightweight content platform. It say that you will be not getting any UI or anything to build up the page. It's a simple hierarchy of a content tree where you can build up a template, you can add a fields. That's it. So you cannot add a component like you used to add in the XM role or a XP role. So it's just a simple content you can build up, and the with the help of a GraphQL endpoints, you will be easily able to get the data. So if you are not relying on any product specific JSS SDK. So in those cases, you can go with the Content Hub one. Or if you are having a large amount of website and your client don't want to restrict yourself to wait for a newer version of a JSS SDK. So in those cases, you can go with the Content Hub one because it's a lightweight. So you will be just getting a content only, nothing else. Any question till this point? Thank you. And you can also get a data from a Sitecore via API using the OData item service or the RESTful API. But in those cases, you can only get the data for a Sitecore item. You will be not getting any presentation details which you have added on a page. But whatever the page is having a fields, those data you can get. But you should be aware about that which item you need to fetch. So those hierarchy or a relationship you have to build up in the form of a XML or any other JSON schema which you need to build up if you wanted to go with the OData item service or RESTful API, or you can build up your own custom API framework also if you don't want to buy a license for the Sitecore headless service. But those required a lot of custom implementation and effort to build up. And now I'm moving to why move to Sitecore headless. So first thing is that flexibility and decoupling. So if you are having a difficulty in managing your application, like I said earlier, you want to move your front-end application as per the current market trend, and you do not need to be wait for your product to come with the newer version which can support the .NET or other thing. So in those cases, you can go with you can propose the Sitecore headless CMS, and also the flexibility in terms of that you can select any of the front application, and some clients don't want to use the even the Sitecore JS SDK. So they are just utilizing you can say that a Sitecore layout service or the GraphQL endpoint only. They are not relying on the uh, even the Sitecore JSS SDK. They do depend on everything. So that flexibility also you can get with the Sitecore headless CMS if you are selecting it. And also decoupling, as I said, that the front end and back end will be not tightly coupled, both are loosely coupled. So you do not need to wait for a upgrade to spin up a or build up a new website. So you can do the backend can do the upgrade, and the current version you can utilize to build up the slides. And also you can save the infrastructure cost also. Developer freedom. So as I said that you can select any type of framework, or in a simple API also you can use to build up the application. Why I mentioned this point there? Some organization or a client are mostly driven by the technical team. So they are looking for a product where they can get a freedom to select any type of a front-end framework, right? So in for those clients also you can suggest a Sitecore headless framework. Future proofing is that if come or new Next.js framework come or any new client-side scripting framework comes which your client wanted to utilize or to do a build up a POC, or want to completely revamp their website into a new market trend, right? Like a more animation type of website, which is mostly required a lot of work if you are doing with the ASP.NET MVC. So that also in those cases also you can suggest business requirement. So the business requirement mostly driven by the product owner, or you can say that the uh, salesperson who are selling the product. So in those cases, they know about their competitor and their website, right? So they are having a very flashy components and those things, right? So they can also come and say that we need to build up a website which can easily scale, save the cost, and also if you are building some type of a platform where you require the multi-site implementation in a very less time. If you are building up the platform, then you can replicate your front-end application very easily without disturbing your backend where you are adding a more features simultaneously. In those cases, also you can suggest a headless CMS. And multi-channel content delivery, maybe your client is wanted to implement a in a 1 year they wanted to go with the headless, and after that they want to move to the mobile application or a kiosk. So in those cases also you can go with the Sitecore headless CMS. Scalability and performance, like and front end and back end are loosely coupled, then you can scale your front end application without scaling the back end. So you can save the infrastructure cost, and also you can increase the performance of your application with the help of a scaling out your front end node itself, not the back end. Project requirement is that maybe you are having a lot of backlog which is required a lot of a UI component which needs to be built up, right? And also there is a pressure from the business team to go with the go live very frequently, right? Or you need to release the feature very frequently for a front end application. So in those cases, if those type of requirements are coming, so you can also suggest to go with the headless CMS. Technical requirement, like you are having a security patches which are pending to be installed, or your Sitecore version support is going set, and also you are having some sort of a technical debt. So instead of working on a technical debt or a Sitecore patching or support, right? So in those cases, you can do the parallel upgrade, or you can try to build up a front-end application separately or in the same content tree to move gradually towards the Sitecore headless CMS. So the beauty of Sitecore headless CMS is that you can simultaneously run both the ASP.NET MVC as well as the Sitecore headless application in the same content tree. So you do not need to spin up other, and you can utilize the content by making the existing content compatible with the Sitecore headless services. So it's not a lift and shift. You need to spend some effort to do that. Any question in the till the next previous section? So now I will be moving towards the feature comparison. So I will be showing a different components which are part of a Sitecore product and how those are going to change in the Sitecore headless services. So I will be touching upon those. So first I will be covering the hosting CM. So CM, like you are aware about that, we will be having a content management role, the main role, and the other is the content delivery. So when you are working with the using the Sitecore XM to build up the your headless products, in those cases you can use the self-hosting, or you can use the Sitecore manage, or you can use the your pass to host your CM instance, and in the same applicable to the XP itself if you are using the experience platform. So these two options are there for you to host the CM role. When you are moving with the Sitecore XM Cloud, Experience Manager Cloud, then in those cases, Sitecore is hosting the CM for you. You do not need to host the CM or installation. Everything will be taken care by the Sitecore. And same happen to the XM Cloud Plus. So there also, Sitecore is taking care of your CM role. So now moving to the content delivery. In content delivery also, in case of a XM, because when you are going with the XM, so you will be using the XM1 topology, scale topology, where the content will be delivered to via the content delivery. So in those cases also, you can expose the data via graphical endpoint or a edge graphical endpoint or a layout service endpoint. So these are the different endpoints. So right code 10 onwards, by default, edge graphical endpoints are enabled. And old graphical endpoints which are available from the Sitecore 9, those are not enabled by default, and both are having a different schema. Means that the representation of a attribute or object is different, and the way of writing queries is different. So those also you need to take care while you are moving to the edge, or you are trying to move to the XM cloud. So those refactoring or the code changes, you have to do that. And it's up to you. You need to expose data via a GraphQL endpoints, or you need to expose via a layout service endpoint. And coming to the XP, the same thing happened to the XP also. There also you will be exposing data from a content delivery. So you do not need to be having a more content delivery server as compared to the traditional Sitecore CMS. You can have a less number of CD nodes depending upon your requirement or a user load. You can do that. And now coming to the XM Cloud Plus. So in XM Cloud Plus, data will be exposed via a Experience Edge, that is also a CDN enabled GraphQL endpoint. So you will be getting a content via a GraphQL endpoint with the Experience Edge. But while you are working with the Experience Edge, you need to also consider that there is a restriction of a 80 request per minute, and also a media item size is up to a 50 MB. So if you are having a large amount of a media files or a higher resolution images or a video, so you need to go to the DAM or any other product to display a means a large amount or size, a big size images into your application. And there you do not need to take care of a scaling as you need to do in the CD if you are doing that, because it's a auto scaling will be there because it's a CDN enable, and the data will be served from a nearest node to you. So those things you do not need to do as you have to do in the XP. And same thing will be happening to the XM Cloud Plus. So there also the data will be served to you via a Experience Edge, a SaaS product. That is also a SaaS product. Now moving to the rendering host. So this is the new, you can say that the word you are keep listening while you are working with the headless CMS. Earlier we used to have a CD node where you will be deploying a front-end application. Now in a front-end language we will be calling it as rendering host. Why rendering host? Because it's render the application which is utilized by the end user. So if you are working with the XM, some clients which those want to save the cost, they usually install on the Windows VM, they will be installing the Node.js server and they are hosting their application. And some are having a their own Azure VM, Windows VM, they are hosting a Node JS into that. And these you can do the self-hosting or you can do the via Azure PaaS web app, you can use that, or you can utilize any other Vercel or anything to host your front-end application also. Right, so it's not suggested to host your front-end application in a CD node to avoid any issues. It's better to use the separate because by default 80 ports will be enabled. So you need to enable a separate node port for your front-end application itself. And same thing you can do with the XP itself. So it's up to you which mode you need to go, because some client is having a Microsoft or Azure tech stack, so they always wanted to go with the Azure, and some are having AWS. So on the basis of your requirement or the client needs, you need to select a specific uh, hosting. And also when you are moving to the XM Cloud, right? So in those cases, the preferred hosting environment for your front end is the Vercel, as I said. You will be having a easy integration, you will be having a pipeline setup, so you can save cost on that. And you can utilize the Netlify, AWS Amplify and those things, but those, if you are moving from a Vercel, so in those cases there are many things which is coming by default with the XM Cloud and Vercel, so you will be not getting, so you need to spend time and effort in building those things. So those also you need to consider while proposing a separate or a different hosting provider for your front-end application. And same thing with the XM Cloud Plus. Now moving to the editing rendering host. So editing rendering host means that when you are opening your application in Experience Editor, because Sitecore beauty is that whatever you wanted to add it, you can say see a real-time view of your application or a component, and that can be utilized by the content author to build up the page, right, in a good visual experience. So in those cases, we need to use the editing rendering host. This is a rendering host only. Why the editing is coming? Because it is utilized by the experience editor. So you can also utilize the rendering host to serve as a editing rendering host if you wanted to, but it's suggested not to utilize the same rendering host, because you need to take care of a runtime endpoint and many other configuration which you need to set in your pipeline. Because when you are working with the editing rendering host or a experience editor or a CMS, you need to get a data from a CM role. You do not need to get a data from a CD. But if you are adding a API host in your code base, like in a Next.js config file and those things, so you need to replace those on the basis of a call by your front-end application. So those complications will come. So it's better to set up a separate editing rendering host. Uh, so in those cases, some people are, as I said, that CD and CM both and the Node.js people are deploying into a same. So it's better to separate it. And always suggested to go with the Linux OS if you are let me see the question. Wait a minute. Mm. Can someone please read it for me if it is possible? Uh,
Can we use headless services without a Sitecore rendering SDK?
yes, we can use that. As I said that in initially itself, it's not mandatory that you need to use the Sitecore JSS SDK, right, to build up your front-end application. Because when you will be installing a Sitecore headless services module into your CMS, it will be giving you the flexibility to get a data via API endpoint, right? That is a backend part. Now, if you are building the Sitecore front-end application, right, headless application, so to get the experience editor support and other inbuilt component or a mechanism, right, from the Sitecore, like a multi-site feature or a middleware. So they are having their own image component. So like those type of things, if you wanted, then you need to use the Sitecore JSS SDK. But if your client is don't bother about a experience editor support or those things, so in those cases, you can build up your front-end application without the Sitecore JSS SDK. So I have seen the clients, they are having a two applications. One application which is not dependent upon Sitecore JSS SDK, they are building for the end user, and where they wanted to provide the experience editor support, right? They have built their separate uh, code base or a repo to provide the experience editor support. So like that also people are building. It's your choice. Now I'm able to answer the query or more inputs required.
Thanks, it is clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And same thing you can do with the XP itself, where you can go with the Azure Web App itself. So in my past experience, I have used Azure Web App services also, and also the Azure AKS, where we are set up our own Linux pod to deploy the application. So you can do that also. It's up to you what you wanted. And also it's better to, it's easy to implement a Linux web app as compared to Windows web app. So always go with the Linux web app to build up your front-end application. But while you are building up, so you need to be take care of that. You will be mentioning a your CM role, URL as a API endpoints and the API key which are present in your Sitecore CMS. You do not need to use the edge API endpoints. While you are working with the XM Cloud, so the experience editor support will be provided by the Sitecore itself. So that is hosted by the Sitecore itself, but you will be not having access of that, right? For a general purpose, like if you want to utilize that edit rendering host for the end user, that you can't do that. But with the XM Cloud Plus, you are getting out of the box that support. But you have to build your front-end application Sitecore Experience Editor friendly, like you used to do in the ASP.NET MVC, right? So if you are using the plain component, like we used to use the ASP.NET component, so then you are not getting the Experience Editor support, because if you have seen in the ASP.NET MVC, when you are building a component, there are some wrapper on top of your HTML object added by the Sitecore to provide the Experience Editor support. So same things you need to take care of in the headless also. And the same thing you need to do, you do not need to set up in the XM Cloud Place itself. So that will be set up by the Sitecore itself. Now moving to the search options, like a non-site search functionality means the search which is search provided which is utilized by the CM role. So while you are working with the XM or a XP, right? So you need to set up your own Solar instance, or you can go with the search text to get set up with those things. Otherwise, you need to host your own Solar cloud environment so that Sitecore can utilize to search the content or get the data. So that is a mandatory thing while you are hosting the uh, XM or XP environment by yourself. When you are moving to the XM cloud, so those things taken care by the Sitecore itself. You do not need to set up those things, but you cannot utilize that search to deploy any custom implementation or anything, and it will be purely for the CM role only. You cannot utilize to implement a end user search. That is the thing here. And in XM Cloud Plus, the same thing. So you cannot get a access of those search provider or a Solar endpoint. So it will be utilized by the CM role internally. So now moving to the Sitecore search option means when you are building a application for a end user the search functionality. So in XM and XP, as I said, that you need to set up your own Solar infrastructure, or you can utilize any search stack, Covio, or anything. And Covio and search stack is providing the, you can say that the real-time update or the indexes. So that will be a very good in this space, because you do not need to set up a real-time mechanism to update your search indexes. It will be automatically when you will be publishing it. And one thing you need to take care, some people are using a XM plus the experience edge. In those cases, they need to set up their own Solar instances or any third party. And if any real-time data they need to push, then they need to add some sort of a custom implementation or a webhook so that they can push a data to a third party Solar instances. So because in case of a if you are using the experience edge, right? So when you are publishing it, your content will be published there, but your search related data will be not publishing it. So if you are using the Covio, you will be getting a connector. If you are having a Solar, because you are publishing to the experience edge, you are not publishing to the CD database or a web database, right? So your indexes will be not there in headless. So in those cases, you need to have your own mechanism to push the data if out of the box connector is not there. So while moving to the XM Cloud or a XM Cloud Plus, so you need to set up your own Solar infrastructure. You can utilize the search stack and the Covio, which is providing the automatic content ingestion. But if you are going with the Sitecore search, so in those cases, you can do the web crawling API ingestion is also there, but you need to have a real-time update on your search indexes or a search content. You need to write some automatic code or a custom code which will publish the data. So Sitecore is currently working on the connector. like the same way the Covio is having, but currently it's not there. The web crawler is providing the 1 hour of interval crawling, but if you want to update your website immediately, like a, pharmaceutical client or a healthcare client or a, you can say that a law firm client. So if they are updating any policies or anything, so they are expecting to immediate update on their website. So in those cases, you should having some backup mechanism in those cases to trigger the search data into the search site for search. So those things you have to take care. Analytics option when you are working with the XM and XP. In XM, you know that you will be not having a historical data. So either you will be utilizing a in memory, but in case of a headless, those rules will be not working. So you need to be mostly rely on the CDP personalized, and some clients are having their own custom framework to implement the uh, personalization in the, you can say that in a front-end application for one of the in the previous project where we will be having some sort of a API endpoints, and in those cases people are logging in. We used to create a Sitecore contacts. Then on the basis of that, we will be getting a data. So those sort of a API layer you need to implement if you are wanted to utilize the Sitecore experience platform personalization. But out of the box, you will be not getting any type of personalization there. So in those cases, you need to rely on the third party application like a Sitecore products, like a composable product, CDP and personalized to full-fledged analytics. The same thing is with the XM Cloud and the XM Cloud Plus. But while you are with the XM Cloud, you will be getting a subset of a CDP and personalized. But if you need to gain a full-fledged functionalities of a Sitecore and a Sitecore personalized, you need to go with the XM Cloud Plus. So everything will be bundled. But if your client is having a large amount of XDB data and you wanted to move to the headless products or a composable product, so in those cases, you need to use the API of a CDP to push your existing historical data into the CDP. CDP is a data lake, so there is no limit of a data there, right? So behind there is a AWS data lake is there, so you can push as much as data you wanted. But those things you need to do by yourself. So you need to, what I say that you need to add a effort of those uh, customization or a utility which you need to write in your effort. And if you want to check a more uh, functionality level or a granular level, so there is a very good article from a fish tanks. So you can check that also if you are looking for XM Cloud, XP, and XM, right? And now I will be touching upon a reference architecture high level, so which will give you the overview. So this is the typical a high level architecture diagram where I have represented a CM and CD role, and also the content delivery where the ASP.NET application will be deployed. And also I will be having editing host, rendering host, experience edge, and all the third party product and the search providers are there. So to understand is that, so if you are seeing this dark lines, right? So those arrows are representing that if you are using the Sitecore CM role, so your CM role like editing or anything, all the data and the media files will be coming from the CM role. But if you are deploying your application into the CD node, the data will be coming for ASP.NET application from a CD, or a media file also can come from a CD and also from your CDN, right? And while you are working with the Next.js rendering host for the end user, you can, if you are having the uh, XM and XP, then the data will be coming from a your CD node and the media file which is publishing to the Experience Edge. And also Experience Edge, if you are using with that, then the media file and data will come from that. Otherwise, you can get a data and the media file for your Next.js application from the Next.js application from the CD node. And for the editing host, both data and the media file will be coming from a CM node. And in most of the headless implementation, you will be having a service layer or a API layer. Some people use the Next.js, some people will use the .NET Core to build up that. So in those cases, all third-party upstream and downstream integration can be done via the API rail, which can be consumed by your editing host as well as your rendering host. And when you are publishing a data from a CM, the data will be publishing to the CD itself, right, to the web database, and also the data will be published to the search provider if you are having your own Solar setup. But if you are not having a your own Solar setup, or you are wanted to push data to the Kovi or anything, connector will be there, or you will be having your webhook to push the data, and that can be exposed via service layer to your front-end application. So with this way, this diagram is explaining about different ways to access the content media file and the search provider and third-party applications. Now moving to the Sitecore XP XM, how the Sitecore search can be utilized. As I said that CM will be there, right? And in those cases, you will be having a custom code base or a webhook. You can utilize that to push data to that via webhook, and custom code will use the ingestion API to push data to the Sitecore SaaS search, and your CMS can utilize directly the data from your Sitecore CMS, because you will be having your own search provider. And ASP.NET MVC application will be getting data from a CD server, and head application can also get a data from a CD, or you are using the Experience Edge, and your head application can get a data from Sitecore Search via API, as you seen in the purple line. So with this way, you can integrate Sitecore Search with your Sitecore XPXM, also with the ASP.NET MVC also. It's not like that you can't use that. When you are moving to the Sitecore XM Cloud, so as I said that you need to use the webhook to push data, and also you can utilize the Sitecore Connect also to send data directly to your Sitecore Search. So how it will happen, you will be having a webhook which will take the data while any publishing is happening in Experience Edge, and that webhook will push data to the Sitecore Connect, and Sitecore Connect and Sitecore Search is having a connector, and you can easily push your schema to that in a real-time manner. And your headless application can get a data from Experience Edge, and also it can access the Sitecore SaaS API endpoint to implement the end user search. And this is a high-level diagram about a Sitecore Experience Edge. So like I said, that Content Hub 1, Content Hub, and XM Cloud and XM Manager, if you are using it, so you can do the content authoring in the CM, and then you are publishing it. Data is directly publishing to the Experience Edge, and Experience Edge is a SaaS offering from the Sitecore, and it is having a CDN enabled endpoint, and the data will be given to end user via a GraphQL. So you do not need to take care of a scaling of those things. It will be easily scaled automatically when any load is there. And that data you will be getting in the JSON format and with the media path, and you can utilize in your any media channel which you are building it. And this is a high level diagram about a Sitecore editing running host. For example, if your content author is working on the headless application, so they will log in into the CMS and raise a request to edit a page. So in those cases, Sitecore CMS is having a Sitecore headless module, right, which will make a call to the render endpoint of your rendering host. So in those cases, post request will be happening from CM to the editing host. So if you are wanted to see that, so you can open a CM role log file, and you will be easily able to see that /JSS render call will be happening, post method is happening to the editing host, and editing host is having the JSS SDK. So it will receive the request and return the data in the form of a rendered HTML to the front end application, and that will be rendered by with the help of a, because you are using the JSS SDK. So all the schema will be coming in the form where by default wrapper will be on top of there so that you can easily edit the content. So in those cases, suppose if you are having a big size of a page, so sometimes you need to increase the size of a data load also. So those settings you have to do it in the same role. So in those cases, it's always better to have a separate editing rendering host, and those will be consuming a data from a your master database. Any question in this architecture diagram, or I have walked through very fast?
Nothing on my end.
Okay. So important things to remember for migrating to Sitecore headless. So analyze the content security policies you have to implement in the uh, here only, the front end application only, because the request will be coming there. But if you are having a connective with the I am telling about a front end application like a rendering host, not about the editing rendering host. But if you are working with the editing host as well as in the Sitecore editing rendering host. So in those cases, you need to implement the content security policies. If you are having a front-end app deployed to the Azure, then you are having a Azure App Gateway and those things. So where your request is coming, you can implement there itself, or you can utilize the Next.js application itself to implement the content security policy like you used to do in the ASP.NET MVC application, where you need to mention the content security policies there, so that you can do that there itself. Both the places you can take care. Shall I move forward, Pradeep, or
Yes.
okay? Thank you. So, so
Amit, a
before
quick
proposing,
question
yeah,
before you start, anyway, a quick question from Project in the group is how we can implement CSP policies.
yeah, content security policies I told, right? So content security policies you need to mention in your front-end application, or you are having a API gateway. There also you can add a header to that, like, because when you are, there are many type of content security policies there, right? So if you have seen that, you need to mention that your application can be called within a iframe or not, right? So those domain names you need to mention in your front-end application, like front-end application, if it's been called in iframe or anything, so you need to take care in the front-end application, or you can directly add content security policies via headers in your API gateways where you are handling the request. So from both the places you can handle. So most people are find easy to do those changes at a their gateway level, or some are using the code base to add that. Because when you are making a request, it will be added on that in your page headers, right? So it can be added directly via app gateways or your networking infrastructure, or you can do the code base also. It's up to you how you to need to do that. Because in ASP.NET MVC, also, your request is coming to the app gateway. App gateway will redirect your website to the IES, and IES will return the response, right? So in those cases, either you will add a rules in the IES, or you will be adding at a app gateway level. From there the redirection happening. So it's up to you. The same logic will be happening here itself. Am I able to answer, or any more clarification required?
I think we can continue with.
Okay. And so we, as I said that earlier, that we need to analyze the business requirement. It's not like that for every client we need to propose. So some clients are having very rigid requirements. So in those cases, we cannot propose the headless. And technical requirement also, is it required to move to the headless, or your application is working fine, or you are having a upgraded version? So then there is no need to go with the headless, because if you are having a very typical integration where you are having a lot of dependencies, so you need to think through that everything you need to convert that into the API layer, and that is also involved a lot of work and the money to implement that. And also, can we implement a headless on the Sitecore XP or XM? So we need to thoroughly analyze what are the benefit of utilizing the existing environment, or we need to move to the XM cloud, right? So those comparison we have to do that, as I was explaining in my previous slide, what are the differences are there. And also the development flow, because most of the developer are not used to with the Docker base, or you are not having a local infrastructure or a dev infrastructure or a systems which can support, or your organization cannot buy a Docker licenses, right? So in those case, those restriction also you need to say upfront to the client before proposing it, because it's involved the cost and lot of approval is required to utilize any new tool like a Docker. Content management, what type of flexibility your client is looking for, or a load is looking for to do the content management, or they are having a this, if you are in your ASP.NET application, you can implement a lot of customization at a CM role, but there is a restrictions while you are moving to the XM cloud, right, or a SaaS platform. So those restriction also you need to calculate. And if you are having a any pipes, custom pipelines you have implemented, right, those will be go away while you are moving to the XM cloud. So those things also you need to thoroughly analyze before proposing it. Content migration, as I said that currently there is no tool present which will automatically convert your XM, XP or a ASP.NET MVC content to the headless. So there is a lot of rework is required. You need to make your content compatible with the headless services. So those migration effort maybe 100 hours of effort, or maybe more than that, depending upon the uh, experience you guys are having. So those also we need to consider. And analytics, that is also a very important point. If you are having historical data, how you are moving or your client needed or not. So those things also you need to take care. And these are the some references which you can go through to get more understanding about a Sitecore headless services or the experience edge. And now I am open for any questions which are there which I can answer it, or any
I
feedback.
Yeah, I don't see any questions in the chat. Anyone, if you guys, you can unmute yourself and ask the questions if you have. So I'll consider
And
as no questions.
no.
Yeah.
And once again, thanks for listening to me. And you can feel free to provide me any feedback, or you are having any question, or the content which I am having in the slides are not suitable, or you are looking for a more information or informative way, because I cannot add more content here, right? I can just talk. So that's why I have keep it simple. Yeah. Over
Good.
to you, Arun.
Yeah, thanks, Amit. So technically, we generally select lucky winners and share the vouchers. But I say, Amit, like there were a couple, but I think they dropped because of the time, right? We had given time only till 7 p.m. We have 5 minutes over. So I see, except you and me, we have only five participants left.
Mm-hmm.
So we will
Mm-hmm.
give coupons for all five participants. Can you guys all put your email IDs in the chat, please? So that saves us some time. Instead of choosing and picking those, we will give coupons for every participant that we have right now on the call. Once again, thank you guys for spending your time with us. We know that it's a busy day, and you're still like when you work for US clients, sometimes it's become difficult to attend webinars on a weekday in the evening time. But thanks for taking out the time. Thank you, Amit, for sharing a very valuable and cutting edge technology session with us. I'm pretty sure that people who have questions will surely reach out to you, maybe on any of the social media. If they reach out to me, I'll make sure that I direct the questions to you and get the answers to them back. Regarding what's next, we will have a couple of webinars scheduled for the next month, so stay tuned. Thanks, everyone, and thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks, Bye. Have a great day.
You